Hey, folks. Welcome to the pre-show. This is not the show, it's the pre-show. Always come on 3 minutes early before we start broadcasting. That helps me get everything all set up here. So welcome to everyone. I got that banner. Oops, I just turned that banner off. So there we go. Banner's up. Scroll bar going. Mic is on. Chat room is ready. So good to see you all. It's a cold day up here today. You know, it's funny. It's been colder this winter, but because it's gotten so warm for winter up here, when the cold hits you again, 6 above zero feels a lot colder than it did a month ago. But we're zooming back up toward 40 again tomorrow. It's been sunny. It's been bright and shiny, so it makes it nice. Winter, we got about a month of solid winter left, but hopefully we will have an early spring. So I'm feeling good about sunshine and warmth, and stuff like that. So just looking in the monitor, did I spill? No, that's the graphic on the shirt. Yeah, there's my shirt, by the way, for today. Here. There it is. I serve no man. Then on the back, I can't even remember what all it says on the back, but good patriotic stuff in my flag. So there you are. All right, we got a minute left, and we go live on the radio. I think we're all set. Sound seems to be good. Everybody seems to be happy. So, Kat, good to see you over there in the chat room. And Uncle Dave Potter is here. Uncle Dave. We are not going to have a captain's cabin tonight, folks, after the show. Rainey is thickly, heavily embroiled in putting together the Scout banquet for tomorrow, the blue and gold banquet for the Cub Scouts. And she really needs my help on some things. And so that's where I'll be right after the show tonight. So no captain's cabin tonight. Sad to say. All right, we're going to go dark. We'll come back in just a few seconds with the beginning of the show.
Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, greetings and felicitations, everyone. Happy Friday night. If you heard that little vocal glitch, that my little girl came in to try to squeeze herself onto air before we went out. So sorry about that. I apologize, but I make no apologies. I'm sorry, but I make no apologies. That's what I meant to say. Welcome. I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. This is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on subspace.radio, where you hear us in our audio form. And if you want to watch the visuals, you can see the video simulcast over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And while you're there, you can subscribe to my channel. You can hit the little bell button, and you'll get announcements for this show. And at the same time, you can hit the join button. That's where you become a member of the channel, not just subscribe. And when you become a member of the channel, there's 3 ways that you can put your hard-earned money into this program, from everywhere from $1 a month to $15 a month. You can go take a look at that. All that money does is it helps us pay the bills and keep things on the air and yada, yada, yada. So whatever you'd like to do, appreciate it in advance, and I'll leave that all up to you. So, hey, Leslie Holker, she's over in the chat room, and Paige Rockwell Soiree is here. Jay here. Mackenzie is here. And Steve Clark. Good to see you, Steve Clark. Steve, I saw that you gave me a phone call today. somewhere along the way, I didn't get a chance to call you back or even listen to my messages. So we'll get together, you and I. Let's see who else we got in here. We got Kat is here from Nebraska. And we've got, let's see, I thought Field Guy was here earlier. And Uncle Dave Potter is here. And so the chat room is starting to become inhabited. There's Sarah Yusuf is here as well. Good to see you all. Tonight, we're talking about something that Ruben Fasthorse and I have hinted at for a long time. And it's also, I've mentioned before, this is the topic of a book I said I wanted to do with Ruben, an illustrated book that would be kind of like The Sword and the Clay. If you look up here in the upper corner, you can see an image of the Sword and the Clay. I've actually got some over here. I could show off later if we wanted to. But we wanted to do a book that's a comparative between Celtic mythology and spirits and spirituality and Native American spirits and spirituality. And we've hinted at this before. We've actually talked about this before. And but not to a great extent. We had a dedicated show for that tonight. Now, I did speak with Ruben a little earlier today. He might not make it in tonight. So if he does not, we'll just we'll banter away and we'll do what we do and talk. Like I say, you can put a nickel in me and I'll talk for 4 hours. So I have cheaply brought speech patterns. So what does Leslie say? I think that would be fabulous, she says. I think if you're talking about the book, yes, I do too. We started talking about this thing about, 4 years ago, Ruben and I. And what I wanted to do was create a couple of characters that were really representative, kind of loosey-goosey, based on me and based on him, only set back 2 or 3 centuries, back into the early 1700s to the mid 1700s. And it's a Celt or Scotsman or a Welshman that comes along, and we haven't beefed out the details yet. I'm Welsh and I'm Scot, so I thought a Welshman would be good, a Celt. And he is befriended by a Native American, which would be Ruben, and it would be Lakota. And they wouldn't be named after us, but these characters would be about us. It would be us, and it would be the brotherhood we share, the all the things that he has stood for me over the last 20 plus years. I used to call Ruben my priest back when I knew him. When I first knew him, the first few years, we would get on the phone, we would talk, even though we wouldn't be in the same state at times. We'd talk for hours. You have those friends that are like that. And these are the kinds of things I wanted to cover in this book. And we talked about, of course, the merging of mythologies, the merging of mythological characters, of spiritual characters and things like that, and how the Celts and the Native Americans really have a lot to compare on that level. And so that's something we're working on. That's kind of what we were going to hit on tonight. And I'm seeing it's very possible that Ruben's not going to make it in here. And those of you, don't call him or anything like that. If he's not here, there's a reason he can't be here. So he's not just missing tonight. But I do want to take an opportunity, and I thought about this as I was thinking before the show that he might not make it in, that there's something very real and visceral. Now, I want your attention on this, folks. You can talk about cars or fishing or horses or whatever else later, but I want you really to, this is a little touchy to do this, but I want this, I think it's necessary. I want you all to hold Ruben in your hearts. Send up a prayer for Ruben. Be your God the God of the Christian Bible or the Jewish Bible. Be your God Allah. Be your God the Great Spirit. Whatever it is you worship, whatever it is you follow. I want you with your heart to put that out to Ruben. I can't really say he's having a rough time tonight, but when I talked to him, he was not. There are times where, and I can't speak to this other than repeat things I've heard. I have not experienced this. It's like a man saying of his wife, "Well, I know all about childbirth because my wife had a baby." We don't, guys. We just don't. We could have a full black and white on paper understanding of what that's all about, but we've never experienced it. With Ruben, and I've had this from him before. He was in tears a little earlier tonight, and was not, I think, doing really well emotionally. And I think that at times, he said to me tonight, he said, "I stand alone." He says, "I am so alone." Now, he's had experiences like all of us have had. We have experiences in our life that make us stand out and make us realize that there are rough times we've gone through, and you either let those rough times sink you or you let those rough times build you and grow you. I think Ruben has gone through a lot of growth, but sometimes there are times where you have those things that happen that hold you up. And as much as you have grown, as much as he was saying even to me tonight, he says, we're resilient. We've both grown. We've both learned from our things that have happened to us. There are some things that still grip him very tightly. I think, Steve Clark, you're in the chat room. We've talked about this on air. We've talked about it privately. So I don't think you'll have any problem with the passing of your wife a few years back. That's still a very hard thing on you. You're over it. You're a grown man. I get over it. I move on. I do what I have to do. But there's still that thing that's been ripped loose that you can't stitch up right. And I think this is something Ruben's going through tonight with some of his experiences. My heart goes out to him because I love him, because he's my Misu, my little brother. I'm his Chia, his older brother. And because Ruben has meant a lot to me over the years, I have dug even deeper into my research and my studies on Native America, which I do only from the outside. Because I am Native American, by the way, but I'm not indigenous Native American. I don't come from an indigenous tribe. I'm Native American only in the sense that my family has been here in this country for about 350 years, and some others of us can say some of the same things. We've got family that goes way back. So, my family was here before the American Revolution, before the French and Indian War. And we've been here settled in Virginia since 1710. So my family has been here. That makes me Native American. Now, some 300 years later. However, with Ruben, in addition to the heartache that he's had in life, like we all have, confess, who here has had a beautiful life and you've never had anything that has set you back emotionally? Never had death, never had separation, never had your heart torn out, never had. All of us have had these things happen in one form or another. And by the way, when I talk about some of my stuff, it isn't to bellyache or cry in my soup or anything like that. When I have stuff I talk about on the show, it's because I'm hoping that it will help others. that it will be helpful to other people. This is how I've grown through this or that or the other thing. Now, with Ruben, he's got additional to anything else any of us may have. There is that very real thing, and I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently about it without somebody representing Native America. But from what I have gleaned over the years, and I've heard in several different quarters, that being Native American, growing up on the reservation, that is all something that brings with it an inherent heartache. Now, there are some people out there that they don't like Native Americans. Oh, they're the dirty reservation rats that live around our town or whatever. I know in Minneapolis, when I was a young man, almost every Native American you saw on the streets in Minneapolis, and there's a lot of tribes around here, a lot of reservations around here in Minnesota. We saw many Native American men that were pockmarked in the face, drunks, some homeless, some, and you know, it was, oh, there goes another drunken Indian, you know, was kind of our thing. We didn't mock them that way. I'm just saying that was the general view. Now, nobody, when I was a young man, I hadn't done these studies into this, and I hadn't looked into research, the culture of why so many in our area were that way. There is, Michelle Cannon-Free says she's definitely struggled. So there is a thing that Ruben carries with him. I would call it a genetic memory, a genetic loss that is bolstered by the fact that he grew up here. He grew up on the reservation, 2 reservations that we've heard a lot of things about in the news over the last several decades. Standing Rock was where he was born. That's where I stand with the Standing Rock Sioux, the pipeline and the water issue a few years ago. That's where he grew up. And then they moved to the Pine Ridge Reservation, which we all know of in the mid-1970s, early to mid-1970s, was the standoff at Pine Ridge. That's where we got to know the names like Dennis Banks and Russell Means and Peltier and the FBI agents getting killed and the standoff in the schoolhouse and all of this. So we've heard of these places in our current pop culture, our current news. If you go back a little bit further, 120 years ago, which isn't a long period of time. When you think about things that happened 100 years ago, now you're looking at 1923. So 1923 and 23 or more years back behind that, at Pine Ridge Reservation, you had the massacre at Wounded Knee, which I've seen depicted only a couple of times in movies. And as an aside, I'll say, if you never watched the movie Thunderheart, I think it's well worth seeing. Now, it's total entertainment. It's not a documentary, but Val Kilmer is in it. This is a movie that came out, God, over 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago now. It doesn't seem that long ago, does it? But he plays an FBI agent who is, as they call him, a half-breed. But he has to go to the reservation where there's a murder. Graham Greene, who played the in Dances with Wolves as the medicine man, was also in that movie as a tribal cop. But they cover what happened at Wounded Knee in that movie very well. and maybe I'm not being very articulate tonight. I'm just going off the seat of my pants tonight for this. But I think what Reuben grew up with, and his obvious heritage and affinity with his heritage, and growing up the way he did, and knowing what he knows, being who he is part of a culture that is its own culture within our culture. And while I'm not making a comparative, it's not the same as people who are descendants of people who were slaves, because they're all integrated into our culture. They have their own issues with things that's fine. I'm not speaking to that at all tonight. But he grew up within that, what was supposed to be a sovereign state within our state, a sovereign state that was the leftover given to them by our government's operating philosophy of manifest destiny, of saying we own this. We are manifest by God. We are destined by God to own this continent. And there were unscrupulous people in charge of that, although there were people who were compassionate toward Native America. And without getting into all the history, I'm trying to hit highlights, and I hope that I'm doing this well enough, that I'm expressing this well enough. But there is Sarah Yusuf said, generational pain is not easy to heal. There are times, even earlier this evening, hour and a half ago, talking to Reuben, and he was in tears, and he was not in a good place emotionally. And he said, I'll be there. I'm there. I'm good. But I could tell. And I thought, I may not see him tonight. And I thought it might be good if I don't see him on the show tonight. And, but he said, he was saying, I've only heard him do this with me once before for all the years I've known him. He said, I am Lakota. He says, and I stand alone. He says, I have no one. Now, he's got a woman he loves that he lives with in New York. Has for several years. He's got people who love him and he loves, but he's in New York. He said, I'm a Pine Ridge Plains horse culture Native American Indian, he says, away from home, living in New York, where there's no one that is like me here. There are other Native American cultures out there. The Lenape are out there, and there are other tribes he's mentioned. But I think he feels very alone, as separated from his people. And you can say, well, he's an American, right? And he's got Americans all around him. Yes, he's an American. But he also he's shown it on this show before. He's got that, what looks like a driver's license, that card that says, I have a number. I'm a numbered Native American person. I have a card identifying me as a Native American within American culture. And from the place he was born and grew up, those reservations, that's who he is. That's his identity. Now, there is this, I want to say there's this great chasm between two sides of things here. There's one side that says you adapt, you overcome, you look at your obstacles and you make your obstacles your stepping stones. And we all know that kind of talk. From the rah-rah, sis boom ba, I'm going to make it, motivational type of speak, to the very real, visceral side of understanding that some of these people are set apart. They don't feel that they belong here in America, but they live here, and Reuben gladly embraces his American citizenship, but he also gladly embraces on a soul level that where he came from. And it's not like me saying, I was Welsh. My ancestors are Welsh, and they came from Wales 300 years ago. 313 years ago, to be exact, and settled here in this new land. I can say that. I've been to Wales twice. Just not to visit relatives, not even to look up relatives. Just visiting or driving through, seeing castles. There are many of us here listening to the show tonight in the chat room that you are German or French or Bohemian or Canadian or whatever is your heritage. And you're proud of your heritage. Many of us in this country who are Americans, we hail back to, the bulk of us hail back to European descendants, ancestors. The bulk of us have never been to Europe. We claim it. So there's that one side that we can claim our heritage there. Yet Reuben grew up in his heritage within this country, within the boundaries of this country, in the boundaries set up 100 years earlier. Well, at the time he was born, he's 50, 60, 65 years earlier was when the boundaries of his reservation, that puts it in perspective. In the days of his grandfather, that was their land and it became somebody else's land. We've been through all that. And so he is a man of two identities. Like I said, there's this gap that's fixed between, on this side, he is American and he accepts it, and he accepts where he's been in his own life, and therefore the stuff of the past that he is not responsible for, nor I, nor anyone living is responsible for, he accepts. He's an adult. He's a grown-up. He wears his big boy Indian breech clouts, as I say. And he moves on. And he's got an effervescence of heart because of his spirit and his soul. But there's that other side of that gap. That is the one that is, I'm Lakota, my people are gone, except the ones, that are still alive on the reservation. He never experienced that old way of life pre-reservation. He wasn't alive then, 150 years ago. But he experienced it because at the time of his birth, he's 50, 60 years old. That transition. And so he looks at his life and he cries. And his heart is broken for his people, for himself. But he works very hard to overcome that. It's almost like saying, there are I'm doing radio. Good night. And you can show everybody your black lipstick. This is Ellie. Thanks for coming in.
It's not my lipstick.
Okay. Oh, it's popsicle or something. Good night. I love you too. Yeah, please, sweetheart. Familial interruption, folks. That's I know, and I love you. Thank you for saying goodnight. She barged in here just as the show was starting, as we were going to the intro for the show, because she wanted to make sure she got in here to burst onto air. So now she's here, and that's what they do. And it's fine. I love it. It irritates me sometimes. Sometimes I just love it because it's my kid. So I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but the point I was making was that I think at times Reuben feels this very deeply. And someone else might look at him and say, come on, get on with it. Shake that stuff off. That wasn't you back then. That didn't happen to you. You've got opportunity here in America. And you know what? That's all true. I should say about this stuff, that's like, and I'm using a woman on this instead of the man because men don't usually do this, but a woman will come into the husband and say, does this dress make me look fat? And the man is faced with a multitude of opportunity right there. He can build up his wife. He can tear down his wife. He can be factual with his wife. He can express love to his wife. Probably other options in there as well. Well, of course that makes you look fat, honey. That might be a fact. But is that loving? No. So using that as a sad joke to make a point there is that you could be factual with somebody like Reuben and a Native American man or woman who have grown up and say, you're scratching to hang on to your culture. And I get that and I understand that. And someone else might come along and say, well, this is your culture. You're supposed to be American. You're supposed to integrate. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being an American and integrating if you're from somewhere else. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with hanging on to your culture. Nothing wrong with that. The difference, I think, is Native American culture was not willingly given up. It was violently taken away. And that was passed on from father to grandson, to son to grandson, to where we are now. Not that many generations. So you have, yeah, there's a Star Trek reference for you, the Kobayashi Maru. It's a no-win situation. The winning is he's resilient. My friend Reuben is resilient. He is able to overcome and move on. And that's what he's done. But he's been able to do that by hanging on to tendrils of his heritage. He teaches the language. He reenacts the language. And he does other things of entertainment in there as well. But he is still, in his heart and in his core, he's Lakota. And I think there are times where, and again, anybody out there listening who is Native American, indigenous peoples, who's Indian, you have affinity with your tribe, you know where you come from. Maybe you're even an activist and you go, hey, white bread, you don't know nothing. You're right. I don't know any of this experientially. The only experience I have is feeling it off my friend. And Reuben doesn't wear this on his sleeve. What he wears on his sleeve is his heritage. And he teaches it. And he loves it. He lives it. And he's had other hurts and pains in life like we all do. But he carries this along with him as well. And it doesn't control him, but there are times it gets the best of him. And I think that's where he was tonight. Now, I will add, there is the big purple elephant in the room that everybody sees and knows. He struggles a bit with drinking. So he had some of that going on tonight too, which intensifies this. And I think he does that. Mind you, and I don't know shit about addictions and how they all work and stuff to be able to speak about it cogently and know about them. I've experienced them. I've seen them. But I think that there are many people who are driven to that when they don't know how to cope in other ways. And they use it to mask pains. There are a lot of people who do that. And I think that when I saw Ruben a little earlier this evening, I thought, oh, he is not in a good way this evening. I don't think he would be upset at all that I'm talking about this, because he'll be back in the saddle and or bareback, and we'll do this show. We'll do what we were going to talk about on another time. And he calls in and participates a lot. He enjoys that. Yes, Jay here. Ruben Fasthorse lives who he is every day. It's him. Your late Lakota husband went through that so often. So then you know experientially, up close. That and there is something to that is very real. That we cannot dismiss lightly. That we'll never understand, I think, unless we were part of that culture with that heritage. Now, it's almost like you want to say you can take the boy out of the reservation, but you can't take the reservation out of the boy. But I would dare say that there are some Native Americans who, a long time ago, left the reservation and integrated into communities. And do they have a problem with reconciling things with their past too? If they live in a nice suburban home and drive a nice car, have a nice job, they're not the dirty Indian, the drunk Indian on the street. They're not the reservation Indian. They don't grow up with that. Their kids didn't grow up with that, so their kids might not have any affinity with that at all, other than learning about their past. Kat says, the trouble on the Pine Ridge was that even though the res is dry, White Clay is walking distance from there across the state line. And they literally sold millions of cans of beer a year. Yeah. Chuck Thurston says, I've seen from the many people I know of Wasso, Shoshone Indians, they don't handle alcohol well. It's genetic, not really their fault. Yeah. I remember when I was looking for Ruben, like I say, we've been friends since roughly 2000, the year 2000. Maybe a little earlier, 98 and 99. And come about 20, I hadn't seen him in a few years. And I asked people that I knew on the rendezvous circuit, the historical reenacting, where I met Ruben. I asked them, whatever happened to Ruben? And there's this big guy, Native American guy. He sets up a big teepee and all the accoutrements at these events to show people what it looked like historically. And yes, it does, Michelle Cannon-Free. Ancestral trauma runs deep. And so I asked him, I said, what if he, and you always saw him at these events at the big teepee. His name was Leon Stanzalone. Big man, bigger than me. 6'3", maybe. Big hunk of burly beef, and he was always bare-chested, had the long pigtails, and wore the breech clouts and the clothing of the day that we were reenacting. And I asked him, I said, what happened to Ruben? Anybody ever seen him? It's been a couple of years. And he said, in that particular way of speaking, He said that accent. He says he said to me, he says, "Oh," he says, "Reuben he has fallen into the bottle. I have heard he's fallen back into the bottle." He says, "The last I heard, he has gone to the reservation." And so I tried to look him up and find him. I've mentioned this before, this story. And this was back, I remember John Ward and I had him on Intrepid Radio when we were doing that back in 2013, 2014, 2015. So it was back earlier than those years. And I found some references to him online, teaching Lakota language in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and things like that. And I kept trying to find him and couldn't. And I got a hold of a family member of his on the reservation by phone. And I told her I really appreciated her taking my call because I talked to somebody else before, a whole line of people, and got my number to her, a family member of his, one of his extended family. And I could tell she was very standoffish and a little, as you might expect, very leery of me, what my intents were, suspicious. I'm Wasichu. I'm a white guy, not held in high regard on the reservation. And so I told her who I was and that I was looking for Reuben. And I talked a little bit, and I said, he's my friend. We've been friends for years. And I said, I'm just concerned about him. I said, and she goes, well, I don't know where he is, she said. I can't really help you. And I said, well, could you do this? I said, if I give you my phone number and you talk to him, could you let him know Scotty called? Sure. So she takes my number, and it was not long after that I got a call from Reuben. She got the message to him. So, and so that's where we reconnected. And then he was, we connected. We had good times, great conversations again. And he told me some of the heartache he'd been through, devastating stuff with his marriage, and his wife, who had Australian mother, went back to Australia. We've told you about her lineage, a very interesting lineage that his beautiful wife had, Ash. Very beautiful physically and a wonderful person. Her mother was German and I think Lakota, but I know her father was Lakota. He was American. In the service, he had met her mother in Germany. They got married. They moved to Australia. And so Ash was born an Australian. So she was this beautiful Lakota woman, like the paintings, I like to say, that you see, the storybook paintings of Native American women. She was that lovely. And Lakota with an Australian accent. It was just great. So, but they had split up, and he had 2 little boys, and she had taken them away. He had no way to go to Australia. She didn't want him there. It was almost like he lost everything. And he was not doing well. And that's drove him back to the bottle, along with other things. And I know we've talked about some of this on air. I know Reuben freely speaks about his. I don't want to take from him anything that is his only to tell, so I won't do that. Yeah, she was, Uncle Dave. She was very much your typical Indian princess. Beautiful woman. And I think I have one picture of her that she and Reuben, when they lived with me and my kids, back when Sam was a year or 2 old and Abby and Bryn were 10 and 11 years old. Let's see if I've got it in here. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'll show you. But just because it puts a face to the name and all of that. Fast horse comes up. Oh, just old stuff. I don't know why, because I know I showed this once before. Oops. Let's see if it comes up. If it doesn't, I won't worry about it. Nope. It's not there. It's not there. So I'll move off from that. But elegant and beautiful, the two of them. And so Reuben has his pains like any of us. To talk about his pains and isolate them out, his life, his living, his divorces, his sons, all that, we all have stories like that. That isn't what I think makes his situation unique. It's on top of that, he's got this genetic memory. It's under the album title. I typed in the name, and I don't think it's under there, Dave. So, unless that's where I looked it up before, I don't think so. But I don't think I've got that in this computer. No, it was my point with that. All I need to do is say, here, folks, just for your benefit, I'll try one more attempt here to find the name of the album was Spirit, and I'm thinking of the album cover, and I don't think it's in here. Nope, it's not showing up anyway. I'd have to go way back to find that. I'm just looking to see if it's in here. Nope. Nope, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I thought when I showed their picture before, when I had Reuben on, that a few months back, that I had resaved that as something, and it's just not here. So I don't know what I did with that. It's probably on the disk that's not hooked up. So I'll let it pass for right now. But so all of that to say, everything, I'll bring this back into a little knot. About Reuben. Anita Palmer just said it best. She said, even though I cannot feel the pain Reuben is going through, I can understand the pain we all try to hide. Yeah, we got that. Chuck Thurston says white people, need to learn that Indians have a history and a memory. It's no less than ours. In some ways, it's greater than ours. It spans thousands of years. Yeah. I look at pains my own grandfather went through. My mom's stepdad, but he's the only grandfather I knew. He married my mom's mom after World War II when my mom was like 3 or 4 years old. It was always my grandpa his whole life. But he was a Jewish man, and during World War II was in Patton's Third Army, went AWOL and went to Hungary to look for his family. They'd all been deported in the boxcars, sent to the work camps, death camps. Now, that, for him, was one generation before him. Very vivid. It was his generation, really. He grew up in America. His grandparents had moved here. He went to find his relatives. Imagine being just a couple of steps off of that is where Reuben is. So it's still very real and very visceral for him. So he's struggling tonight. If you would think of this as, now I didn't plan what I was going to say. I didn't even know if he was going to make it here tonight. If he had made it here, we might have talked about something completely different. I think he didn't make it here is probably a good thing because he wasn't in a good way an hour and a half before the show. So, and I even gave him the out. I said, Reuben, if you're not up to coming on tonight, he goes, no, I'm there, brother. I'm there. Chia. So I was really hoping he wouldn't make it because I didn't think he would. I think he needed the night off. So I didn't really formulate anything I was going to talk about tonight. And again, if anybody's listening that thinks I have no right to mention this kind of thing or talk about it, you're right, I don't. Not about my friend, but about the issue of being Native American and growing up and being out of place and having that generational, if you will, that genetic pain. I can talk about it. I can't talk from it. And I want to respect that. I have a lot of empathy for my brother Reuben. So just realize, I think this is a good moment for us all to maybe reflect on. I've talked a lot about Native American culture on this show over the years, because it's been an area of historical research and study and a lot of empathy for me. And it's something I wanted to know about. It's something I wanted to get as close to feeling it as I could, but never would because that's not my heritage. So it's like I have mentioned a few times on the show with great pride and great zeal. Reuben is adopting me, and we just have not had a chance to do a ceremony on this yet. He's got to come out here, but adopting me into his Lakota tribe, into his family as his brother. And which to me was such a great honor that he would do that. And he gave me a Lakota name. I might have given myself a different name than he did. It was his respect for me and what he felt about me. He said, "I've got a." He gave me the name and he quoted it in Lakota, and I said, "What's that mean? Like big bear shitting in the woods or something?" And he laughed, belly laugh. And he says, "No." He says it means someone who thinks above. That was the way he viewed me. That was his name for me. Thinks above. You could, in vernacular, say a smart guy, smart ass, maybe, I don't know, but somebody who's smarter than others, and I look up to that and I respect that. So it's somebody who thinks above. That was what he wanted to name me. And it was pronounced, and I still don't spell it right. Waonspia wagakea. Waonspia wagakea. Could be wagatea. I think it's wagakea. Waonspia wagakea is my name in Lakota. That's what Reuben means to me, and apparently what I have meant to him, that he would do that. And I'm very honored by that. So one of these days, we're going to get him out here, and we're going to go out and do that. You know, we're thinking of taking a little trip with the family again this summer because we couldn't do it last summer, out through the Black Hills and through Pine Ridge and Wounded Knee and a couple of the old fort sites out there, and eventually make it to the Greasy Grass, the Little Bighorn. And we're going to try to get Reuben to come out with us, and my daughters as well, and Sam, and everybody. Make a big family trip. Ikateya. Here, I'll put that up here. Ikateya. If we're going Shoshone, says Chuck. There you go. Something like that. Ruben could tell you better than I could. I've got it written down, actually, phonetically on a piece of paper, and I tucked it into something a long time ago. So, I was going to, when I was kind of thinking that Ruben couldn't make it here tonight, might not make it in, I thought, well, I better do something. I better have something prepared. And for the radio audience, now we're already almost at the end of the show. And it's actually going to be for the YouTube audience, too. Rainey needs my help on something. I announced, if you weren't here at the very beginning of the show, that there's going to be no Captain's Cabin tonight. So when we sign off with radio, I'll probably stay on for a couple of minutes, and then we'll sign off right around 10 o'clock, 10:05, something like that. So we'll talk for a little bit afterwards, but I've got a helper. She's putting on the Cub Scout banquet tomorrow, and she needed my help on a few things that she was struggling with. And I said, I will preempt the Captain's Cabin, and I'll help you out with that. So, yes, Kat, and Fort Robinson. Never been there, but I want to see it. Lots of history there. It's where Crazy Horse was killed. Yep. Fort Robinson. And the whole Wounded Knee, bury my heart at Wounded Knee, was what he requested long before he was killed. So, yeah, we got less than a minute and we sign off on radio. So those of you listening on radio, we have preempted the show for a very choppy, unrehearsed, unwritten down, just talking about my friend. Hold him up in prayer. And I don't have time left in this show to read this prayer to you. So I will do it after we sign off over on the YouTube channel. So if you want to stick around for the YouTube channel, all of those of you on radio, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey, folks, we're back just for a brief few minutes with the Captain's Cabin. I wanted to look up this prayer that I first learned from Ruben Fasthorse. He has recited it here in native language, Lakota, as well as sign language, kind of a universal language. And like everything else, there are things that are on my computer, and there are things that are on discs. And so if I actually have this, it would be in here, and I'm not seeing it. So I'm thinking it's because this disk drive is not hooked up. So give me a second, and it's unplugged. It's even unplugged. So I can't do much about it tonight. Plugs are all on the other side. I I'm going to see it. It's a more of a universal prayer. Great Spirit. I'm going to see. Yeah, this is it. It goes like this. All right. This, you've heard Ruben recite this before, and I may have read it before in years past, but this is something that I learned from Ruben Fasthorse. And the bass booms came through your new headset, Elderberry. All right. Now here's the prayer. It goes like this. Hey, Sean Stroik. It says, oh, and now, as I start this, just think of Ruben when we pray this. It has a lot of meaning for me because I learned it from him. It goes like this. O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the wind, whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you've made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things that you've taught my people. Help me to remain calm and strong in the face of all that comes toward me. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. Help me seek pure thoughts and act with the intention of helping others. Help me find compassion without empathy overwhelming me. I seek strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. So when life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. That was a prayer that was originally translated by Chief Yellowlark. So think of that. And think of Ruben tonight. Lift him up. Send him out your energy. And that's all. We'll do this next time when we've got Ruben back with us. We'll do this show on the merging mythologies. Chuck Thurston says, Ruben, thing with depression and alcohol, they don't work well for you, but seek help. You're not alone. You're not wrong. Thanks for that, Chuck. You're not alone and you're not wrong. So there you go, folks. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I will be back on Sunday morning with It's Sunday. And if we're lucky, we'll have my beautiful wife, Rainey, with me as well. And that's all I got for tonight. I'm going to go help her now, get her stuff ready that she could really use a hand on. And she does all this stuff. My wife is one of those people that does everything alone. Yeah, I can help you. No, I got it. But when she needs help and she asks me, it means she really needs help, and she needs help on something. So I'm going to give her a hand. So you guys all have a wonderful night, a good Saturday, and we'll see you back here on Sunday. So all of you until then, live long and prosper.